kind of give you a kind of a kick, kind of get past the grade a little bit, and punch G in the testicularis a little bit. See, because if you can stop the blood sucking, you can give our people a little bit of rest to begin to recover a little bit, because our people are injured politically and economically, and the Europeans are keeping economic pressure on our people so that you don't develop spiritually. Do you understand? And make people think that you can take starving people and they can just be spiritual because they say Jesus, God, Allah, and Moses, Muhammad, and Buddha, and they're all fine. No, they're not fine. And the babies aren't fine. So let's stop faking it. Are we clear?
Sure.
Now, in 1861, keep this in mind, Obama goes to Hikupta, which is the proper name of Egypt. Write this down. H-I-K-U-P-T-A-H. That's the proper name of what you've been told in history is Egypt. Egypt is a modern, contemporary, sociological designation of ancient Hikupta. That's for the public consumption. But all imams, priests, high priests, PhDs, master masons, skull and bones know it's Hikupta. Put a line under the last four letters. Ptah. Ptah. P-T-A-H. Ptah, that's where the Europeans get Peter, that they do in the Bible. They're taking your seat. Same thing with the Pope. He's taking the position of the Pharaoh. Notice they've traded places with you. The doctrine of discovery is to kill off the heirs. You understand? And you're the heirs. This is why so many people over the years have put so much effort into dumbing our people down or keeping you from knowing what they refer to as the Masonic secrets. And the Masonic secret is you. That's why when anybody gets near that information, they start saying, "It's the devil." And everybody gets starry-eyed and close up. And don't examine things that are before them. And they're actually cutting their own throats. Unknowingly. Islam.
Islam. Well, brother, I was on...
Speak louder.
I was on YouTube, and I was looking at one of the brothers that was doing some things in ancient Kemet. And he was showing the Masonic ladder, Jacob's ladder.
Oh, yeah.
How they use it. And there's a key on there. That key is us. So when you see that key, that means you.
Mm-hmm.
They're hiding it, but it's right there.
Yes.
It's a key. And that key is us. We're the key to all this. But the lodges hide this. But he was showing us how to read that, you know, for the lodges. And it was very interesting.
You good.
With the key. So you see that key.
Everybody knows. And the interesting thing is that all of your so-called black leaders and imams and preachers all got this information. That's why they got them degrees. Anybody that got any of the degrees, priesthood, reverends, master masons, skull and bones, Knights Templar, Knights of Malta, Daughters of American Revolution, Daughters of ISIS, any of those orders, one of the first lessons they get is of Ruth the Moabitess, great-great-grandmother, the one they refer to as Jesus, which is a code word, and his name is Yahshua. Hair like lamb's wool, skin like burnished brass, your own bloodline that you forgot. Because you start following after them Romans who's contaminated everything. That's why you're in trouble. But again, knowing that they've controlled the education system, our job is to bypass and put some little crimps in Rome's gears. Because they've had a couple of 100 years, well 1,000 or so, messing up the people's head and think that somebody can't undo their craft. We know we can't fix anything, but what we can do is throw some rods in them spokes. Can't ride bicycles too good with bent spokes. This is with the understanding and the knowledge of the fact that the Congress for the United States Corporation Company, which was sanctioned to do business at Morocco under the Treaty of Peace and Friendship that Obama mentioned when he went to Hikupta, And then the Ordinance of 1787, which the design of Muslims and deists, who they refer to as the founding fathers, absent of the Moors, when they tell you the truth, all of them had Korans. Jefferson, George, John Adams, Benjamin Franklin, all of them were 360-degree Masons with Moorish fezzes. They are deists, they were not Christians. Their job was stop the hundreds of years wars between the Muslims and the Constantinians, who are coded as Christians, to bring peace on the planet. That's what the United States, the Republic, is originally for. Their job was to overthrow it. The Knights Templars, not so much them because they was kind of innocent in some ways, but the deputy knights for the popes of Rome, etc., which are the barristers that you know now as the BAR, or what do you call that? All the bullshit. The Bar Association. Their job is to overthrow the Republic. Are we clear? Clear. Now, keep in mind that you're the heirs to the world's largest estate, and for them not to maintain the obligation to the treaty that supersedes all other law. This is where you have in Article 6 of the American Constitution, all debts and contracts entered into before the adoption of this Constitution shall be binding against the United States under this Constitution as under the Confederation, and all treaties made or which shall be made in pursuance thereof shall be the supreme law of the land. And the judges of every state shall be bound thereby, and any laws or constitution of any state to the contrary notwithstanding. This is why it's important for them and for their paid-off black leaders to keep you thinking you're black so that you can enforce the supreme law of the land, which is the treaty that Obama talked about when he went to Hiccuta, and then Michelle went to the Alhambra, the last stronghold of the Moors, before the entry of the Pontifex of 1492 for your destruction from the popes of Rome. And Inter Caetera Divina of 1493, and those are the church policies that's been the source of all the world's wars ever since. And it's the source of your miseries then and your miseries now. The source of all the lynchings and everything else. Keep this in mind. To undermine their obligations to the law, in 1861, the Congress adjourned sine die. That means without day. They adjourned without setting the day for re-adjournment, etc. They were dissolved. But the intent was to undermine the heirs of the estate, i.e., they were intending to betray. So 10 years later, 1871, they did a coup. They won't teach that in school, and that coup was a secret overthrow of the Republic in order to set up a demo system for the priesthood of Rome under the doctrine of discovery. That overthrow of the United States Republic set up secretly the system for the demons, and it's called democracy. Contrary to the Republic that's set up at Article 4, Section 4, which guarantees a Republican form of government for every state in the Union. That's a requirement for them to be party to this union of light for humanity, which is represented by the original Republic government set forth by Muslims and Christians, etc., called the United States Republic of North America, at Morocco. Societas Republica el Almoricanus. That's the proper name of the government. Now keep this in mind, I'm just going to cut through this. because we're going to go through the documents now, so that I'll give you a little background so you kind of understand what this is. Now, there was a check written for this guy in Clearfield, Pennsylvania. I think it was $24.60. And the check was stolen and it was forged, and they cashed this check with this trust company. And latches is a legal term that is used, you know how like when they say a return date, like you have so many days to counter an argument or an issue. It's called latches, you know, time termination type thing. So latches was used in this particular case, and so the U.S. Persons call themselves U.S. government, de facto, greedy as they are, they're going to make sure they get a return on this. So that's what this case is really all about. Now, the reason I gave you that other background, so you can understand what the lawyers are thinking about in the background that you won't see in the case directly. But when you know law and history, you can read through the lines that are dispensed in certain cases, and I suggest to you, this is one of the most important cases for you to know about and to use as a countermeasure in any legal argument, once you understand the history, which I just told you. This is why they do not teach history and law together. However, they're always together, just like your left and your right leg. And when they separate them, they've already handicapped you in the race of humanity. Are we clear? All right. What this essentially does, how many of you all know about that railroad case that they use as a justification to deny people Supreme Court cases? You know about that, brother? Yeah. Speak up just a little bit. Just share with us, family. Assalamu alaikum, family. Islam.
That was the day when they set that up. They wouldn't let nobody go past 1939.
Yes.
To sovereign law.
Yes.
Which is the Constitution.
Yeah, denying them constitutional due process. In other words, they were undermining the Constitution, right? And so the magistrates, who are really deputy knights for the popes of Rome under the secret treaty of Verona, etc., enforcing the doctrine of discovery, was actually denying the people due processes under the Constitution, because automatically that would also enforce the treaty, you see? Because they're actually one document. And meanwhile, they had a lot of so-called Negro preachers marching people around, getting them to agree to be 14th Amendment corpses, thinking they was getting citizenship and voting rights. It's like the chickens going to the wolf party, talking about whether they're going to have gravy on the chickens or cayenne, and they have a right to vote on it. It's true. This is what all them Negro acts are, and then civil rights, and all that kind of crap. 14th Amendment, corpse. And so they gave corpse the quality of person. This is why corporations are called persons. That was constructed in 1868 when they closed the Freedmen's Bureau, where they were supposed to give these people back their names, their nationality, and these people were supposed to render unto Caesar what is Caesar, that it is codified Constantinian dogmata, fakely called Christianity, which is really a mind control system. And they was lying on Jesus type thing. Of course, Jesus is a code word, password, means justice. Do you understand? What the prophets, Yeshua. Do you understand? So they smoked the brains of these people, and they've been robbing them. When you understand their machinations, you can understand what the barristers, because sometimes they're so greedy, they let the cat out the bag. And so what the Clearfield Doctrine does, it undermines that railroad case and exposes what? Without saying it, exposes the coup of 1871. And what does that express? This is what it expresses, you all. Clearfield Trust Company versus United States, 318 U.S. 363, 371 of 1942. You see? A couple years after, watch how they undermine themselves. Governments descend to the level of a mere private corporation and take on the characteristics of a mere private citizen, where private, corporate, commercial paper, which is Federal Reserve notes, and securities, which are checks, is concerned. For purposes of suit, such corporations and individuals are regarded as entities entirely separate from government. So what does that mean? All of these persons claiming to be government are merely foreign peregrinos, pilgrims walking around pretending to be Americans and pretending to be government, and they're not. And you've been calling them officers because you didn't know history and didn't know law. And they've been raping you and taxing you and enforcing their Spanish Inquisition amongst Asiatics who don't know themselves, don't know their home, and they're being sold out by their own people, black marching, praying leader guys, in conjunction with the occupying Europeans who have lost their right of sovereign operations under that constitution, which is a compact with the Moors, and when they violate it, they're done. It's just that the heirs don't know who they are, so they have not stepped up. Do you understand? And so what you have is absent government. And so everything concerning your estate is listed as abandoned. And they're using that trick to claim your estate, and this is what the banks are using with all foreclosures. Are we clear? That's the grounds that they're arguing. And so the heirs, not knowing themselves, don't know that all they need to do is be themselves and claim their estate. But they don't know this is their estate. Do you understand? And the leader guys being paid off, not telling them. Their job is run around, talk racism and crayons. And you know, my light-skinned, orange-skinned black aunt used to have some land in North Carolina. See, but my Indian mother and my light-skinned black shoes that I had on, they start talking like you already know they're COINTELPRO. Because all of them know these people ain't black. They know the word black. It's not wrong with the word. The code is to make these people not descendable. You can take a child to a elementary dictionary, right? Blacks traced to Middle English, 1100 to 1500. So as soon as somebody can start talking about the ancient black gods of Egypt, you already know they're lying. All scholars know that, but people who can't read don't know that. They don't know they're being played, and they know our people can't read. They don't even have a third-grade grammar, because third-grade grammar would tell you the first thing you do with any word is put it in its proper matrix, or its mother. It's called the part of speech, which is 8. Second classification would be what? One of the 8 parts of speech, and it's etymon, right? It's etymology, it's egg, its origin, its true meaning. Middle English, 1100. The word don't go beyond that on the planet. So is there any such thing as ancient black gods of Egypt? Nope. Third grader could know that if they're properly taught to read. But you have ducks that have the mentality of children, they call minorities. They can't even read, and they're going to tell you about Jesus, God, Allah, what's on the dark side of the moon, and when the Nibiru's coming through, and they can't even read. They don't even know how this government is structured. But they got a lot of beliefs, though, that don't work. But they're arrogant and self-righteous, so they sacrifice their children by the day. Anyway, so pay attention to this, good brother. Look at this, analyze it, right? And then, as we, you know, if you feel as though that you want to comment, to add to it, do so. So, Clearfield Trust Company versus United States, right? What the Clearfield Doctrine is saying and establishing in stare decisis, write that down, y'all, stare decisis. It's important for you to be familiar with these terms because you're going to need them when you try to save your houses when they come take your stuff. Law is that when private commercial paper is used by corporate government, then government loses its sovereignty status and becomes no different than any other mere private corporation. So when you're talking to anybody that's talking about their government, it's just like talking about the manager that's behind the wrapping papers in Sears. Let's get ready to close. That's no different than buying batteries at Radio Shack that's getting ready to close. Are we clear?
Clear.
So when you're talking to these people in law, that's who you always been talking to and what they've been doing. You know, you didn't pay your taxes. We're getting ready to levy your daggone wages and stuff. And you say, well, please don't levy my wages because I'm going to get a lawyer from the Barristers Association and see if I can get my second job at McDonald's. And these are just ordinary peregrinus walking around faking like government because the people who are the government have been so stupefied they don't know that they themselves are the republic. They're called black people and whatever crayons they think they are this week. And so it's quite difficult to get through to them to understand how things really function. Meanwhile, the injury economic that's put upon them creates sicknesses because it lowers their vibratory rate. In other words, most of the sicknesses you have come from stress. And it's done by your high priest. You understand? So when your so-called reverends get their 501c3 skull and bones kickback, understand that's not really from Jesus for teaching the word. That's for Rome, from Rome, for messing with the word, which is called the Etherium. So that's where you get your connotative linguistics, distinguished from denotative linguistics, which is the dumbed-down system that's used in all of the school systems, churches, mosques, and synagogues, etc., to dumb the masses down so they can bleed them, suck your blood. So, as such, the de facto entity, once deemed as legitimate government, has failed its purpose and then becomes bound by the inferior and common rules and laws that govern private corporations, which means that if they, government officials, government agency contractors, employees, or personnel, pretend or intend to demand, to enforce, or to compel an individual to some specific performance based upon its now private for-profit corporate statutes or upon its now private corporation rules, then the government, like any other private for-profit private corporation, must provably be a holder in due course of a valid and verifiable contract, etc. Where we at? First. Yes. Now, how many of you know what holder in due course is? All right, get used to that, so write that down for those, because we're not going to be going through all these things, so we want you to take those notes so that you can critique what you get today later, because it's not enough hours in the day to re-educate everybody. But understand when you come here, this is what we're trying to do, give you a background that's been held back from you by your imams, reverends, and priests, all these high priests who have been cheating you and robbing you and getting kickbacks from the state that they lied to you and told you that they're separate from, when actually they're deputy knights for the state. Are we clear?
Check, I see you.
In between, wait. Stand up just a minute. Bree got up for a minute. When you give his brother a hand, this brother works constantly to keep these classes going. You say, stand up, good brother. There's another brother that doesn't get enough credit for making things work around here, you all. And so when you see Sabrina come back and sit down here next to him, understand that she's a queen that always got his back. Love that sister, love this brother, and give her a hand when she walks back in here. So anyway, you all, essentially, this will be made available to anyone who wants it, etc. But understand, just as a preliminary, this is why we've done the trust. Do you understand? For people who don't have the years of study or accumulated knowledge to defend their estates, because they don't even know they have one, and their leader guys are not going to tell them because they're getting kickbacks called the 501c3 skull and bones agreement, telling you that their tax-exempt status for teaching the word, lying their keisers off, because they're agents for Rome, the same Romans that murdered all the prophets. And the people think they love Jesus, God, Allah, Moses, Muhammad, and stuff. And so they use this knowledge for their own selfish benefit but they don't reveal it to the believers who pay the bills and always get screwed. Sure. So, you have before you just a rough copy of the trust and the quitclaim deed. So understanding this, we're going to talk the nature of it, all right? I'm going to go a little bit through congressional records, House Joint Resolution 192, not complete, but only in some reference points to put your perspectives right. Are we clear? Sure. Now keep in mind that the economic and political attacks that are made upon you is not just for the economic extraction of your wealth. It is also designed to create the sicknesses that the people call dis-ease. Are we clear? So if you concentrate on fixing the root of the problem, most of the diseases will leave. For they are symptoms for the most part. Are we clear? All right. Sure. I want to show you a little bit of the military document, King Alfred. How many of you are familiar with Executive Order 11490? Look around the room, y'all. How many of you are familiar with Executive Order 11490? Again, not enough. But I just want to point some things out to you as we go along so that conceptually you understand why this argument is being made for you. I'm going to read this preliminary page right here. Now, this was done, Sabrina, y'all, give her a hand. Now understand the much of the technology that is used in this biological warfare is from studies prior to, but much of the concentrated studies and human experimentation that took place in World War II after Germany was nationalized for some people that was claiming to be somebody that they're not and had control of their economy. And so some of the techniques that were learned, including vaporization in their later stages, is planned to be used on some other people in these days who are also claiming to be somebody that they're not and are taking up space, making babies, and they're heirs to an estate and they don't know it and they're going to try to get rid of the heirs. Right. So this is a military document, top secret. It's called King Alfred Rex 84. It's also an extension of the doctrine of discovery and it's still conjunct with the Spanish Inquisition. And you're the center of it. So Executive Order 11490, October 1969, King Alfred Plan, Rex 84 Plan, Concentration Camps, Executive Order 11490, Expanded Top Secret, Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars, Introductory Programming Manual, Operations Research Technical Manual, TM, SW 79051-1, the United States of America Incorporated. This Executive Order number 11490, the Rex 84 Plan and Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars has been in the hands of the popularly accepted individuals calling themselves black leaders since the early 70s. Many have spoken of them, but few have logistically broken them down and disseminated the information to their alluring public. King Alfred Plan implicates the true motives and reasons why they do not. One will take note that all the people mentioned in these government plans, blacks, Indians, Latinos, Puerto Ricans, and poor whites, do not include a de jure national names or titles. All these words are descriptive chattel brands coined by Europeans as substitute pedigree parentage names and were forced as appellations on the indigenous peoples of the Americas and their own discards. All people bearing these labels are referred to as it in these texts. One common thread is evident. No nationality equals no rights and no human value. Are any of these states assigned black leaders speaking of or educating their people in recourse, redress, remedy, or sovereignty? Do they instruct or do they not? That is the question. Then go to the preliminary report. Just keep turning till you find it. Go ahead. I might have to reduce this so that I'll take this down a little bit. Let's see. Next. All right, there. All right, left page. All right. So I'm going to increase it. Now, this is for those of you who don't know. And keep in mind, you all, this is a military document, and but this is for those who don't or may not understand why you're being given this information. It's also reminding you again that all your so-called black leaders that they talk about have this information. Again, when you study this, you'll understand what was meant by that French Muslim when he schooled Malcolm, when he made the Hajj and they went over there talking about black and white, and they told him that stuff don't fit here. Huh? Because you made the Hajj, you ain't visiting home, you left home. And of course he knew that the traitors are all around, and it ain't just the Europeans. And of course those who knew that he found out, they did their Masonic password and talk about, get your hand out our pocket. Because they knew that he had enough honor and that indeed, eventually he was going to tell the people. So he became a threat. Do you understand? Because knowledge is power. Because he found out he was being played too. Now, these are the infiltrating organizations which are under surveillance. This is King Alfred. This is a military. This is the military plan, etc. So all your politicians have this. All your so-called council people have this. You know, like I hear Philadelphia Council and all this stuff they do to stop and frisk and all that stuff. That's King Alfred. You know, all the killing the youth on the street and stealing their organs, King Alfred. Traffic court, all the fraud, King Alfred. To drain the communities, to create sickness, break up families. And all of them are magi. They call themselves magistrates. They're magi, working for the Pope. Roman Curia. And the marching, praying black leader guys get a kickback. Skull and Bones, 501c3. Black Muslims, infiltrated organizations. That includes us. Everybody's infiltrated, so don't get this twisted. 2, Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. Congress of Racial Equality. The Uhuru Movement. Group on Advanced Leadership. Freedom Now Party. United Black Nationalists of America. The New Pan-African Movement, the National Urban League, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, Committee on Racial and Religious Progress. Now, I want you all, for those of you who don't understand or don't know the real history or the real geography, pay attention to these next paragraphs because it's very revealing. And at the same time, don't you ever think that your so-called marching, praying Negro leaders didn't have this information, because they all do. They're 32-degree Masons and more. Do you understand? All right. Note, at the appropriate time to be designated by the President The leaders of some of these organizations are to be detained only when it is clear that they cannot prevent the emergency, working with local public officials during the first critical hours. All other leaders are to be detained at once. Compiled lists of minority leaders have been readied at the National Data Computer Center. It is necessary to use the minority leaders designated by the President in much the same manner in which we use minority members who are agents for central and federal, and we cannot, until there is no alternative, reveal King Alfred in all its aspects. Minority members of Congress will be unseated at once. This move is not without precedent in American history. Attorney General. Preliminary memo, Department of Defense. Take notes, pay close attention to this, and understand the sellout that Malcolm found out that all the leader guys around him already knew, and what that French Muslim was saying to him. Go ahead, good brother.
That paragraph right there, with minority members of Congress will be unseated at once.
Yeah.
This move is not without precedent in American history.
Exactly. Now you understand when they overthrew, when you all see that movie, that movie they used to call them talkies, that was first viewed in the palaces called The Birth of a Nation. And most people get upset when they show the Asiatics with the coattails and everything eating chicken and watermelon and making mockery of them. They were the senators and the congressmen. And the people get so busy talking about racism, they forgot to pay attention to what they're looking at. That if they were slaves, what were they doing being the congressmen and senators? That's the other one that's making reference there. It's not the first time you was thrown out.
Is that the part where they told them that if they don't leave, they'll kill them?
Exactly. Step down or die? All right. Now, pay attention to this, you all. And keep in mind, all your marching, praying leader guys got this information, always had this information. This memo is being submitted in lieu of a full report from the Joint Chiefs of Staff. That report is now in preparation. There will be many cities where the minority will be able to put into the street a superior number of people with a desperate and dangerous will. Pay attention to this line, you all. He will be a formidable enemy, for he is bound to the continent by heritage. How many of you knew that? How many of your so-called black leaders told you that? Or how many told you that they brought you from someplace else, knowing that you're home? And always knew it. See what all your politicians and your leaders knew? See what Malcolm found out? Kind of funny when you're going around talking about,
and he took the black man and brought him to the head of North America and took his sandwiches.
you're home, always been home. Disconnect you from the land in your mind, makes you not descendable.
Well, they say,
Quick, share with us.
if we say bound by the continent, they're just talking about the United States, right?
The continent.
Continent.
Continent is a landmass.
That's the United States.
A continent.
Continent. They
Land.
Morocco. How about the planet?
I know. I'm clear on what it is, but I asked
Asia.
for the camera to make it clear to everybody else. I'm clear on what the answer is. I asked him for the camera and for the people who may see. When you talk about the continent, most people think about America, they think the United States. Well, you got to think America. America is the largest continent in the world. You're talking about North, Central, South, and the adjoining islands. Be clear that North America goes all the way up to Greenland. Right. When you look up there and you see that land up top and it's all white and it's iced out, that's America. That's North America. So I asked the question because people may be wondering or people may not know. So that's why I asked the question, just for a little bit of clarity. When you talk about bound to the continent, we ain't talking about here. We're talking about the continent.
The whole landmass from the north to the south. Stand up so they can hear you, brother.
Also, people misunderstand that when they're talking land, also they're always misconstruing it as a country. This as a country because that's what they want to manipulate people into believing that you know, you part of the country of U.S., whereas the U.S. is just actually a code word.
A private corporation. That's
Private
what it is.
corporation that dissolved, like Sheik said. You know, the continent is including everything. The whole of Archipelago.
Thank you.
Ashayu.
They know that those who've been educated by the Rockefeller Foundation, which was set up in 1902, called the General Education Board, to make them docile, they don't know the difference between a continent and a country. And we're talking about the adults, so you know the children ain't got a chance. You ask the average adult who's been educated by the Rockefeller Foundation, they're saying, and the American president. They don't know America's a continent. 2 of them. That's adults. So again, I'm reminding you why we're doing these writs for you. Because you have to be qualified, because these people have been dumbed down. Seriously. Now, because Rome is under pressure by the rest of the civilized world, they're liquidating your estates. Are we clear? Yeah. And if you don't step up and declare your right of claim to your estate and trust, they're going to liquidate them to other nation states and trying to get out of town while they can. Islam, good brother. Speak loud so everybody can hear you. You're on camera.
You're saying they're liquidating. The problem I got is the Europeans, which are the colonialists across the water, which is Europe. How are they liquidating something that never belonged to them, that they stole, say, never had legal claim to it?
All right, good, good. Y'all got this? Yep. Now we're going to go back again, go back to congressional records for those who don't know. Some of these things we present to you, we will be redundant because we want you to, in your mind, be able to make reference to these things on your own so that you can have lawful standing in any legal argument. You have to be able to be thinking on your feet. Are we clear?
Check.
Are we clear?
Check, I see it.
All right, so let's go to congressional records, etc., in support of what Brother Jim just exposed. Let's see here.
I mean, they're separating the country, the continent, and giving everybody a piece of the continent when they never owned it in the beginning, especially Manchuria, and they know that this belongs to us. They all know, but the people here. And I just can't get a grasp on giving something away they never had, never controlled or anything. They just got it through theft.
If I can add something to your question right there. They're controlling through the birth certificate and they're controlling through their social security number. That's what they're controlling it by.
The people, but not the land.
Huh?
The people, but not the land.
Right.
You can control the people.
Look at it like this.
Exactly.
The people are the land.
That's right.
People are the land, exactly.
This is what you have to look at. The people, when you say the land, don't separate from the people. The people are the land.
I see.
Because the land is reflective of the inheritance of the people. So it is said, Kabbalistically, honor your mothers and your fathers that your what?
Days may be long.
Where? Did it say cloud? All right. That's your estate. And so the resources that support this body come from the earth, did not? Ashes to ashes, dust to dust when you finish using this vehicle. Am I correct?
That's correct. I see.
So when you're talking the land, you're talking to people. When you're talking about the people, you're talking about the land. They're equals. When you separate them, that means your concepts about this whole thing and your experience on the planet, your concepts are incorrect. We're trying to help each other correct our concepts so you can regain your lost estate. Are we clear? You must be competent. Now, this is James Traficant, representative for Ohio. And you all know they bumped him off in September. Now, you know all Europeans are deputy knights or knights templars, etc. And they all know the land is Morocco. And you know they're not supposed to be revealing any Masonic secrets. However, out of his frustration on the floor of the Congress, he revealed things that are pretty much kept secret. Keep this in mind with the Clearfield Doctrine, all right? All right? This speech was made by him in 1993 on the floor of the House of Representatives in relationship to activities that took place with Skull and Bones member Franklin Delano Roosevelt in 1933, but it also has concurrent relationship to Woodrow Wilson, 1913, and then back to the coup that we mentioned, 1871. Are we clear? Clear. So while it's not spoken of directly, you must know the source of knowledge from which he speaks. What is the motivation as to why he's saying what he's saying for the revelation to the common people, knowing that they don't have this information relatively available, you see? So once you know these things, it redeems you from the ignorance that causes you to lose all the time when you're dealing with these magi. You understand they've been stealing people's estate because the people don't know that their estates have been claimed under the doctrine of discovery already. Because they don't know how to link the past to the present, because they can only see phasally at the present. But those who know have six eyes. They look at things from multifaceted levels at all times and discipline themselves in order to keep clear pictures. This is taught in true religious philosophy. This is where you get your seers and your prophets, so they can look at the future, the present, and the past like a clock, and use math and what you call spiritual geometry, and project the pictures. Sometimes it's called remote viewing. But it's a natural capacity of humanity. It's just that dogmata has suppressed it. Do you understand? That's what belief systems are for, by the priesthood, in order to stagnate humanity, not to raise them up. Right. Anyway, so let's look at a priest who's talking to other priests. Are we clear? Clear. Clear. James Traficant, representative of Ohio, addressing the House. House of Representatives for the Congressional Record, volume 33, page H, 1303. This is for any scholar that want to say, oh, they don't know what they're talking about. It's congressional records. Look it up for yourself. Mr. Speaker, we are here now in Chapter 11. Members of Congress are official trustees. Trustees means there's an estate, doesn't it? That's right. Trustee also means they don't own this stuff, do they? No. So they're presiding over an estate that belongs to somebody else. Presiding over the greatest reorganization of any bankrupt entity in world history, the U.S. government, we are setting forth, hopefully, a blueprint for our future. There are some who say it is a coroner's report that will lead to our demise. It is an established fact that the United States federal government has been dissolved by the Emergency Banking Act, March the 9th, 1933. Think Delano Roosevelt. 48 Statute 1, Public Law 89-719, declared by President Roosevelt being bankrupt and insolvent, HJR 192, 73rd Congress in session, June the 5th, 1933. Joint resolution to suspend the gold standard and abrogate the gold clause, dissolve the sovereign authority of the United States and the official capacities of all United States governmental offices, officers, and departments, and is further evidence that the United States federal government exists today in name only. So what has been promoted amongst the masses? And the government, government's been dissolved. So where do you think that leaves you if you don't know that and you've been, who do you think you've been paying taxes to? Popes of Rome, Roman Curia, Inquisition, Secret Treaty of Rome, Doctrine of Discovery. That's why they put their names on you as a curse and a title of possession. So whatever you buy or sell with the mark or the number of that name automatically goes to the state coffers under the rule of hypothecation and abandonment. Write that down so you can look in your law books. Abandonment and hypothecation. We'll continue. The receivers of the United States bankruptcy are the international bankers via the United Nations, the World Bank, and the International Monetary Fund. All United States officers, officials, and departments are now operating within a de facto status. Write that down, de facto. In name only under emergency war powers, with the constitutional Republican form of government now dissolved. That's the overthrow of 1871. The receivers of the bankruptcy have adopted a new form of government for the United States. And this new form of government is known as a democracy. Do you see that distinction, y'all? Yes. So you see the republic distinguished from the democracy. And so you hear that everybody running around talking about our democracy. And the people haven't contested, have they? No. So that means you abandon your right and you've just sanctioned them. This is why you must change your language. Are we clear? So is an heir to the estate competent to receive his or her heirship when they don't even know the structure of the government that's been administrating over their estate? So I'm going to repeat that. The receivers of the United States bankruptcy are the international bankers via the United Nations, the World Bank, and the International Monetary Fund. All United States offices, officials, and departments are now operating within a de facto status in name only under emergency war powers. Therefore, get familiar with the War Powers Act. It's in your spare time. Get familiar so that you can start defending your house, your property, etc. With the constitutional Republican form of government, Article 4, Section 4, write that down, get familiar with it. Now dissolved, the receivers of the bankruptcy have adopted a new form of government for the United States. The new form of government is known as a democracy, being an established socialist communist order under a new form, a new governor, for America. This act was initiated and established by transferring and or placing the office of the Secretary of Treasury to that of the Governor of the International Monetary Fund, Public Law 94-561, page 8, Section HR 13955 reads in part, the United States Secretary of Treasury receives no compensation for representing the United States. Why not? Because the office doesn't exist. And so when you get them letters talking about the Treasury from the IRS, you're talking about the coffers of Rome under the Spanish Inquisition, which is what's in operation. So what you think happens to people who get these instruments that don't know the lands of Morocco, think that the United States Corporation Company is a country, think America's a country, don't know it's a continent, don't know that 40-60 split under the secret Treaty of Verona every time they do a 1040, 1080 form to the IRS, which is the Inquisition Revenue Services. 40% goes to the Queen of England under the Treaty of Verona, and 60% goes to the Bishopric of Rome. Not a penny goes to your babies. And you ain't figured out why you broke yet? But we always know Jesus, God, Allah, Moses, Muhammad. I suggest that we're full of it. Somebody needs to pull our coattail, tell us to wake up, start taking responsibility, and fixing things for the next generation, since we appear to have not wanted the truth. And we keep suffering, keep marching and praying, and starting new black organizations to deal with the symptoms instead of deal with the root of your problem. Because everybody punking out don't want to challenge Rome, who is really their God. They don't fear no Jesus, no God, no Allah. They fear Rome, that's their God. So pick your boogies and smile. Now, Gold and silver were such a powerful money during the founding of the United States of America. Article 1, Section 10, write that down, Article 1, Section 10, because you're going to use that in all your legal arguments. That the founding fathers declared that only gold and silver coins can be money in America. And since gold and silver coinage were heavy and inconvenient for a lot of transactions there, they were stored in banks and a claim check was issued as money substitute. So your original silver and gold certificates were the checks. Are we clear? Yes. These people don't even know what checks are. They've been 4 steps removed from the real estate and the real property that they've been giving fraud instruments on top of fraud instruments on top of fraud instruments and start talking about they've been paid. We're talking about the adults, so you see the trouble of the children. And then we talk about the self-esteem for the children, and the people are sick, and we need to spiritually develop them. We're full of crap. They're sick because they're under stress. You fix the root of the problem, you fix the sickness. But they like to talk symptoms, like they're doing some spiritual awakening crap. And they're getting that in the background to keep this BS going on. When they know the source of what the problem is, they all know what it is. They're under colonial operations of Rome. So if they render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, the sickness will start going away. How about that one? Anyway. The founding fathers declared that only gold and silver coins can be money in America. And since gold and silver coins were heavy and inconvenient for a lot of transactions, they were stored in banks, and a claim check, which was the real certificates, was issued as a money substitute. So even that's a substitute. Are we clear? People traded their coupons as money or currency. And it's called currency because it's based on the electrical system of the body, because all things are energy. Are we clear? Currency is not money, but a money substitute. Redeemable currency must promise to pay $1 equivalent in gold or silver money. Federal Reserve notes make no such promises and are not money, quote unquote. A Federal Reserve note is a debt obligation of the federal United States government, not money. The federal United States government and the U.S. Congress were not and have never been authorized by the Constitution for the United States of America to issue currency of any kind, but only lawful money, gold and silver coin. It is essential that we comprehend the distinction between real money and paper money substitute. One cannot get rich by accumulating money substitutes. One can only get deeper in debt. We the people no longer have any money. Most Americans have not been paid any money for a very long time, perhaps not in their entire life. Now do you comprehend why you feel broke? Now do you understand why you are bankrupt along with the rest of the country? Federal Reserve notes are unsigned checks written on a closed account. FRNs are an inflatable paper system designed to create debt through inflation, which is devaluation of currency. And whenever there is an increase in the supply of a money substitute in the economy without a corresponding increase in the gold and silver backing, inflation occurs. Inflation is an invisible form of taxation that irresponsible governments inflict on their citizens. The Federal Reserve Bank, who controls the supply of movement of FRNs, has everybody fooled. They have access to an unlimited supply of Federal Reserve notes, paying only for the printing costs of what they need. Federal Reserve notes are nothing more than promissory notes for U.S. Treasury security T-bills, a promise to pay the debt to the Federal Reserve Bank. Now do you understand the formulation of the mortgages in 1913? And so the silver coin, this is the dollar. That's why those who are conscious always carries a silver coin in their pocket. Representative of the Republic. Also, in emergency, etc., you pull out your coin to let them know what side you're on. Now, so with Federal Reserve notes, you can only, pay attention to this. And this is where those who understand the commercialization or the human trafficking, where they're talking about discharge, set off. This is where it comes from, House Joint Resolution 192, are we clear? But it is relating to the coup of 1871. You got to put all that in your head so that you understand how you need to argue. Are we clear?
Yes.
All right. There's a fundamental difference between, quote unquote, paying a debt and, quote unquote, discharging a debt. To pay a debt, you must pay with value or substance, i.e. gold, silver, barter, or commodity. With Federal Reserve notes, you can only discharge a debt. You cannot pay a debt with a debt currency system. You cannot service a debt with a currency that has no backing in value or substance. No contract in common law is valid unless it involves an exchange of good and valuable consideration. Unpayable debt transfers power and control to the sovereign power structure that has no interest in money, law, equity, or justice because they have so much ill-gotten wealth already. In other words, they stole your birthright. Their lust is for power and control, and since the inception of central banking, they have controlled the fate of nations. This is the war machine under the Spanish Inquisition that continues to this day. Under the doctrine of discovering the Christian Black Cruz and the 14th Amendment straw man ends legis transmitting utility that everybody is trying to conquer or capture, sometimes without knowing the real history. You understand? So you need to know what is involved all around this thing, so when the dark priests come at you from different angles, you know, you can box. Like, oh yeah, leave that one. You understand? Because they're not playing, they're here to feed on you. And they've been getting away with it. And then your leader guys, their job is to pet you while you get sheared.
Oh, Jesus loves you in this.
While you get sheared and they get a piece of the action. 501c3 Skull and Bones Agreement. Anyway. Federal Reserve System is based on the canon law. Keep that in mind, y'all. Write down canon law. Next to that, also underneath, but not related to that, I want you to write down common law so that you can consider that that's what we're talking about in relationship to you making any claim of right of your property. Your capacity to effectively use the common law is based in the principle of your honor to your mothers and fathers of archaic and immemorial relationship to the traditions and customs of your forebears. This is how the common law is evoked to trump the Roman law, to trump the canon law, to trump the civil law, to trump other systems of law. Therefore, the honor of your mothers and fathers is important for you to be talking common law. So don't think it just applies to you because somebody talking about, yeah, see, the common law, that's the Constitution. See, so I'm invoking the common law because I got the UCCs, and then I'm going to tell them what to do. Well, if you're not your proper person, you can talk common law all you want to. Any contract you bridge, any commercial instrument you create, UCC 1s and 3s and all this stuff, and you're not your proper person, common law don't apply to you. The canon law does. Islam.
I wanted to read something.
Speak up and speak louder so everybody can hear you.
My name is Eric Bey, and it's something I wanted to read because I'm studying this course I got from Hakeem Bey. But it's dealing with what you basically just said. I just wanted to read it in case it might benefit anybody.
You got to speak up louder so everybody can hear you.
The supreme law of the land is the United States Constitution. The Constitution also provides that treaties made under the authority of the United States shall be the supreme law of the land. Federal treaties are therefore paramount to state constitutions and statutes. I want to read this. All law in the United States, whether case law, statutory law, or administrative law, is subject to the federal Constitution. No law, federal or state, is valid if it violates the federal Constitution. The final arbiter as to constitutionality is the Supreme Court of the United States.
Good. Now look at this. As you're aware, some persons, European stock, who in recent years have started sovereignty groups, etc., to claim some sovereign right. And as you do a little bit of research, you'll find that some magistrates in some parts of the country tell them, don't bring that Constitution in here. And they say, you can't use that Constitution as a defense because you're not a party to it. Do you all understand what that really means? I mean, honestly, do you understand what that really means?
No.
All right, this is what it means. That, as Obama said when he went to Hikutu, the American Constitution is derived from Muslim law. Now, when you're talking about the founding fathers, that's Jefferson, Madison, all them guys, Ben, John Adams, etc., right? And a few others. If amongst the Europeans they can't prove direct descent, including alliance with the Republic, notice that they overthrew? Yeah, huh? Or if you're not of Moorish descent and declare it, you can't use them instruments. Because the constitutions and treaties are from a national perspective, no different than a will is in a family order. For it is in place to protect the interest of the progeny. And if you're not a progeny, you can't claim heirship. And if you're not an heir, you can't be the creditor. You can't be the debtor, though. How about that? Now, how do you invoke it? It's called by the common law. You see? So how can you trump that double stock trust that they created? Because no legal person's allowed to create a double stock trust. Even though that's ex post facto.
Can I ask a question? Right here, guys, be honest. Okay, you got these white people.
Don't call them that. You just gave them the sovereignty.
Okay. Who say that I'm Native American. Which means that they could claim what you just said.
Yeah,
right?
that's why they did it.
I'm seeing that now when you're saying what
Yes.
you're saying. Right.
Because they're here to steal your birthright.
Right. So, because they like to say that all the time.
Yes.
Whatever percentage of Native American.
Now let's look at this. They made that designation up. That's it, and they created the BIA, right?
Okay.
All right, and then they tricked some Moors to agree to be Indians, think they're going to get a sovereignty benefit. Then they started selling their land and everything, taking over their casinos and all the stuff, didn't they?
Right.
So any fiction they create, they have right to it.